Hi there, and welcome to the Skylight Books author reading series. If you'd like to learn more about us and our many upcoming author events, please visit skylightbooks.com, where you can browse our inventory, buy books, and join our Friends with Benefits Club. You can also follow us on Twitter, Tumblr, and Facebook. To speak to a real live bookseller like me, please call 323-660-1175. Thanks for your support, and enjoy.
So now, without further ado, we have MariNaomi, the award-winning author and illustrator of Kiss and Tell, Dragon's Breath and Other True Stories, Turning Japanese, I Thought You Hated Me, and Life on Earth trilogy, the first of which is Losing the Girl, which you're all here for tonight. Her work has appeared in over 60 print publications and has been featured on websites such as The Rumpus, LA Review of Books, Midnight Breakfast, and BuzzFeed. Her comics and paintings have been featured by such institutions as the Smithsonian, the De Young Museum, the Cartoon Art Museum, the Asian Art Museum, and the Japanese American Museum. In 2011 and 2018, Mari toured with the literary roadshow Sister Spit. She's the founder of the Cartoonist of Color database and the Queer Cartoonist database. We're almost there. She taught classes for the California College of Arts Comics MFA program and was a guest editor for Penn Illustrated. She's the co-host of the podcast Asked by Girls with Miriam Gerba. And you're all here for Losing the Girl, which Jen Wang says MariNaomi authentically captures the angst, vulnerability, and longing of the teenage soul through not just one, but four unique and distinct voices. Here she is.
Hi, thanks for coming out. I'm so happy to see you all here. This is my first ever graphic novel, like fiction graphic novel. I've had 4 memoirs out so far, but yeah, this is my first time in make-believe. So I'm going to talk about how this is this is actually mostly based on true stuff, because that's I don't know. Don't let me forget those glasses. So this isn't going to be like a straight off reading. I'm just going to be really geeky about this and talk about the process here, because I don't know. So should I read this? All right, well, so the origin story of this book is, I never really read YA when I was a kid. When I was 11, I discovered Kurt Vonnegut, and I kind of, went from him, and then by high school, I was going down this Dostoevsky hole, so I was never really into the stuff that was supposedly targeted at my age. So when I was trying to sell my first book, Kiss and Tell, when a publisher, I'm not going to name names because apparently I'm being recorded, they were interested in Kiss and Tell, but it was a little too mature, and they wanted to know if I would do YA. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I've never read YA. So they sent me a big box of books, and I was like, okay, yeah, I could do this. And so she said, well, why don't you come up with an idea, and we'll, a pitch, and we'll see if the departments or whatever like it. And at the time, something really traumatic was happening to me, where I just found out that a close friend, an old friend, had betrayed me, and we'd not been friends for a long time. And how TMI do I want to get here? So she and I were friends for a long time, best friends, and then one day she wasn't, and then I found out 10 years after the fact that she had been sleeping with my boyfriend at the time, and that was the real reason she didn't want to be my friend. I know, right? It was pretty traumatic, but this whole time I'd been blaming myself for the loss of the friendship. She told me I wasn't a good friend, and so I'd been internalizing it this whole time. So anyway, I was going through this whole thing, and I just found out about this, and I was really in this hole. I was ready to stop demonizing her because she was such a close friend, but she'd done this really terrible thing to me, and we weren't speaking. I hadn't spoken to her for a long time, 10 years at that point, and so I'm like, well, maybe I could work with that. And so I was like, well, how could she do that to me? And so I was trying to see things through her eyes. And so I decided to write a character that looks a lot like her and thinks a lot like her, and to physically, well, not physically, but to literarily step into her shoes and eyeballs and to see, okay, well, I don't think she's a bad person because I don't believe in bad people. what are her motivations here, and that was the impetus for this book, which is what it turned out to be. Are 4 different protagonists. The story is told through each of their eyes. All of them, I wouldn't say any of them are likable. I don't think any of them are unlikable. I don't believe in writing likable characters because they bore me. So, and it's interesting because a lot of the bad Goodreads reviews I've been getting are because, this character's problematic. I'm like, yeah, they are. Like, that's the point of the character. But whatever, I don't care about Goodreads people. So, let's see. Everyone's complicated, blah, blah, blah. So this first guy, I'm going to show you each of the characters. And this is the first book in a trilogy. So I'm working on the 3rd book right now. The 2nd book comes out next year around this time. And so these characters will develop as we go along. This first character is Nigel Jones. He's based on 2 boyfriends I had in high school, one after the other, and I kind of melded them together. Again, this is my first time, getting published, writing fiction as a mature author. So of course I was just not writing fiction. I was just writing auto-bio, but like giving them names. So this is so he. In addition to writing from different points of view, I also chose to do the art in 4 different points of view, specific to their worldview. So this guy, he's kind of stylish. He's sort of as we all are, the hero of his own story. Very self-involved, as actually all the characters are pretty self-involved. But you could see it in the way that I portray him. He's just like very all the lines, there's no blurriness, it's just like very matter of fact. And this is the girl he has a crush on. Her name is Emily, and she's one of the protagonists. The way I portray her in his section is she's sort of idealized. She's physically the character, the protagonist that resembles me the most, but she's not necessarily the one I identify with the most. So they're walking, and he's kind of trying to hit on her, and he's like, have you heard the one about the skate rat and the mongoose? And that's my husband Gary, and I wanted to take pictures of me because my nails will never look this good. So if I seem like I'm posing, I am. Hi, Todd. So have you heard the one about the skate rat and the mongoose? And he's been making jokes this whole time. And she's like, come on, Nigel, get real. Huh? And you see her script here, the font that's in the word bubble. All my fonts are, hey Steph, hey Matt, are hand-drawn because I don't believe in doing computer fonts. But in this section when she talks, she's kind of exoticized, she's idealized, and her text is really curly, like cursive, because that's kind of how he sees her as really girly and this real cute girl. But that's not how she is in her own section. So anyway, she's telling him to get real, and she says, surely there's a serious side under all that joking around, because his jokes are really annoying. In fact, one of his jokes is mentioned in almost all the bad Goodreads reviews because it's so problematic. I'm like, yes, that's the point. That's why she doesn't like him. Anyway, I'll stop talking about Goodreads. Me and my co-podcaster Miriam Grover, we did a whole episode about Goodreads and whether or not you should read your reviews, which is no, but I do it anyway. Anyway, so he says he's getting real here, and he says, okay, life sucks. How's that for real? That's a good start. My dad's so pathetic. He has some stupid midlife crisis, and the next thing you know, my mom kicks him out of the house. Now he's living in some apartment complex on Mill Street that's full of all these old divorced people. Hey, son. That's weird, she says. I know. If it makes you feel any better, my parents drive me crazy too. They're always fighting. Sometimes I wish they'd just split up and get it over with. Yeah, well, let me tell you something. Just because they split up, it doesn't mean they'll stop fighting. So So this little panel here is where I probably identify with her the most, because my parents fought a lot when I was a kid, and I always wished they would get divorced. But now looking back, I'm like, that wouldn't have stopped the fighting, because they'd still have to talk to each other. But so I allowed her to have this revelation at 15 instead of 35 or whatever. Whenever I realized that. So this next section, this is her through her own eyes. Emily Hiroko Baker. She's got a very black and white point of view. Everything's wrong or right in the beginning. As her world gets a little more complicated throughout the book, we see more shades of gray slowly, and especially throughout the series, you'll see her mature visually. Her self-image is amorphous. You could see a little of that in Nigel's section, but with hers, she really either, sometimes she feels really pretty, sometimes she just feels really dorky, and it's always reflected, as you'll see here. So here she's looking at her crush, Brett, and those are her friends up front, Claudia and Paula. We'll see Paula later, so imprint that image on your mind. Not Claudia, Celine, sorry. Celine says, "Don't waste your time. Everyone knows that Brett's got it bad for Johanna." I know that. And since she's so pragmatic, I gave her a very pragmatic font. Or, I don't know if a font can be pragmatic, but to me that is. And here's Paula saying, "She's been crushed ever since you read that poem at the talent show." And her internal voice says, "I can hear you. Where is she?" Ugh, there's Johanna. I'd hate her if she weren't so nice. Johanna! Oh, hey. Later, Jay. Nice place. Thanks. I'm watching it for my mom while she's at belly dance camp. Now you could also imprint Johanna here on your mind, because you see her later through Brett's eyes. But through Emily's eyes, she's kind of like this frumpy, plain girl who she can't figure out why Brett likes her. Belly dance camp. I know, right? And I gave Johanna a slightly curly font here just because she's, even though Emily sees her as frumpy, she also thinks she's a little fancier because she has Brett's attention. I put a lot of thought into fonts. You can't make this up. Ha ha. Hey, I've been meaning to ask, what do you think about Brett Hathaway? And here she is looking all cute because she feels like she's being all innocent seeming. Brett? Oh, I love him. Love? I think of him like a brother. Oh. His dad used to fool around with my mom. Oh, boy. I mean, are you going out or anything? Ew, that'd be incestuous. Yeah, I think there's laws against that. Har har. Well, I'd better go. Happy dance. So you see her looking very dorky because she feels because she's kind of being a dork. Okay, this next section right here is Brett Hathaway, her crush, through his own eyes. He's an artist, he's dreamy, he's kind of had a hard life, so I wanted to give him shades of gray for his worldview. And here is Johanna through his eyes, which is a lot more like idealized woman in a Hollywood sort of way. And she says, "By the way, what's going on between you and Paula?" There's a little spoiler. Uh-oh. And you'll notice his internal dialogue is a lot fancier than his external, which is this. What, you mean Emily was weird cat lady friend? And here's just another panel from later. He does a lot of, his sections very kind of hallucinatory. Some of the sections have internal dialogue, a lot of it, and he maybe has the uh-oh, but it's very minimal. Next and last is Paula Navarro, and Emily's friend, and what do I say about this? So this is the character that's based after my friend, and her point of view is kind of like her drawing style, which you see in the beginning. It's like we see a glimpse of her sketchbook, and so it all kind of looks like this. And she's got this kind of ongoing internal monologue going, and there's no panels. It's very different than the other characters, and here's where this guy is breaking up with her. And I'm not going to read this part, but this is Emily through her eyes, which again is very idealized. And I'm going to go back though, because when you see his font through her eyes, she actually hears him as he is in his own mind, which I thought was, anyway. See, I told you I was going to geek out. This is so dorky. Thank you for not leaving yet. So this is how she sees her. She's kind of bitter about it. And this was kind of reflective in things that people told me about my friend once we weren't friends anymore, saying, well, she idealized you and she was in love with you, and she like was really bitter because she thought you had it good. And I'm like, really? Like, while she was sleeping with my boyfriend, she thought I like, what was she jealous of? It was pretty weird. So I was just really trying to get in her eyes, and here she's feeling bad about herself and saying, I didn't ask to be like this, all crooked teeth and bad skin. And there she is with the rain of guilt coming down upon her. Anyway, so that's the end of my presentation. Let's see, I don't really have anything else to say about it other than if you've read my other graphic memoirs, I kind of feel like all those were preparing me for the challenges I was tackling here in fiction, and we could do a short Q&A if anyone has questions. If not, there's still some bags of loquats from my tree over here. There's about 9 or 10 of them. Don't eat the peels and don't eat the seeds, but they're very delicious. I picked just the juiciest, most ripest ones that weren't eaten by birds. And I also have bookmarks for the book that you can have even if you're not buying the book. But what?
Would you shit?
Would you shit? Oh, yeah. I thought you said, would you shit? You should. Yeah, any questions about... Oh, yeah.
You said you read the books that talk YA books.
What did I learn from the YA books? I learned what not to do, which is, I think, really valuable. So when I was reading, like, some of the books were good, some of them were not so good, of course. But I also learned that YA was a lot more than either it was when I was a kid or what I gave it credit for. They were tackling a lot more important or interesting issues. I feel like YA now does a better job than YA in the 70s and 80s of talking down to its readers, which was a huge turnoff at the time. So once I saw that not everyone was doing that, I'm like, okay, I could write this. Like, I don't. Basically, the only difference to me between writing YA and non-YA is that, well, I couldn't swear as much, but also, and I couldn't show as much sexy bits. But most importantly, I just got to dwell on the minds of these teenagers instead of doing what I normally did, which is go across a broader expanse of time. So, but the biggest challenge, and by challenge I mean exciting, really super fun thing to do, was write fiction, because I could be a lot freer and give away a lot more secrets than I was doing. Yes, Steph?
I want to hear more about, writing in different POVs, because that's when you've written a lot of memoir, and that's been pretty strictly your point of view across several books. And I know that that's something that a lot of fiction writers tangle with, but it's interesting to me because you have this other medium where you're able to kind of use these different methods. But can you talk about kind of how you approach,
well, the
well,
when I'm reading other books, I feel like that's why I read, is to see people's points of view other than my own. I mean, it's just more interesting. The reason I decided to go with that was because I wanted to show compassion for the characters, and there's one character so far still in at the end of book 2 where he still just seems like a bad person, but in book 3 I'm getting into his mind, and I think it's so exciting to do that. It was probably not a good interview, but I just did this interview where I was talking about compassion, and I'm like, well, Ted Bundy also worked at a suicide hotline, and he made friends, and he saved lives, so I'm not saying he's not all bad. He's clearly on the bad part of the spectrum, but but everyone's got complicated things happening, and I just think it's really important for life, in life in general. This sounds so hippy dippy, but like that we, if we're going to understand each other, we have to learn how to get into each other's shoes, and so, but like really, I was super interested in getting into this one woman's shoes and eyes, like, and to figure out, like, just to get past my anger, which kind of not really worked. I don't know. But I think it turned into a good book. Also, what's interesting is, so I didn't end up going with that first publisher who sent me the box of books. They saw, so obviously the thing that I was most excited about this was the point of view thing, because it's never been done before. I mean, it's been done in novels. I've heard that there's or maybe it's a movie called Rashomon, but I've never seen it, so I know someone else has done this, and there are different books that conquer different points of view, but as far as I know, it's never been done visually, so I was really excited to do something that never has been done before, and I spent the last 10 years in terror that someone else is going to do it, because it's such an obvious thing to do, like as a cartoonist, like of course, why wouldn't you do this? But apparently that's why it took forever to sell, because no one wanted something that was different, and that's why they rejected it at that first publisher, was because they're like, well, we like it, but can you just draw it in one style? I'm like, no. Oh yeah, there's also aliens in this book. I forgot to mention that. But that's sort of a backstory. It doesn't come out until later. But throughout the thing that ties everything together is that there's a missing girl named Claudia Jones who has potentially been abducted by aliens. But that's not important. So, I don't know. Does that answer your question?
I want to hear you talk.
Oh, I love you too.
So you mentioned what you liked about writing, the challenges of writing a fictional piece. What was the downside, or what were some of the differences that you were more challenging writing fiction than fiction that you didn't really like as much?
What did I not like about fiction? I don't know. I think I liked it all. I mean, it was harder because I couldn't be like, oh, like I had to design everyone's clothes. Like with my memoir, I'm like, oh, let's just look at people like in this time and place, or let's look at pictures of what was happening or what was going, like the area that I lived in. But like I had to make everything up, and like I made up this town, I made up all the architecture, I made up all the people, and I started it 10 years ago, and I didn't know what kids would be wearing when or if this would get published. So I'm like, well, I don't want this to look dated, so let's just try something wacky here. Yeah, I think the scariest thing for me when writing through someone else's eyes is the first character's black and I'm not, and I was terrified I was going to get something wrong, so that was scary. We sent it to a sensitivity reader, though. I know. Who pointed out little things here and there, and he thought the biggest problem would be that he's dating, that he's dating a half Asian girl. So far, I haven't seen that in the criticism yet, but like every time I get like a 1-star review from a black person, I'm like, oh shit! Like, did they see something that I don't know about? Like, this is scary, and yeah, so that was the scariest part. Glad this is being recorded. Is there anybody else? Oh, Evie, I love the kimono. You did. It's okay.
Maybe I did.
Asian Pacific American Month?
Yeah.
Some hashtag.
What was the most maybe surprising thing about working on this book? Whether it was you as an artist, was there something that
Surprising. What was the most surprising thing? I think the editing process was really surprising to me, because there are a lot of things that when I was reading the YA books, like, they got kind of raunchy. Like, those kids were doing some stuff, and like these kids do some stuff, and it was weird what I could and couldn't show. And I completely understand why. Like, my editor, he's fantastic, but he's like, okay, well, gatekeepers aren't going to like this or that. Like, they're going to call it porn and take it off. So could you just make an insinuation of this happening? So basically, any kind of body parts. Like, I didn't have much straight up nudity, but that had to get taken out. There was a lot of swear words that I fought tooth and nail for, to keep as many as possible, and now I'm seeing what he was talking about, because a lot of these, today on, this is going to be about me reading my own reviews, but today on Amazon, I didn't realize that people were reviewing on the book on there. I'm like, oh, what's this? And someone said they really liked the book, but there was some pretty problematic language in there that I used to just, there's this one bully, and he calls this kid a faggot, and I'm like, that's very problematic. It's supposed to show that this guy's an asshole, and this guy's like, I don't think parents will appreciate she's teaching our kids the word faggot. I'm like, I'm not teaching them the word. They know the word. Come on. I'm teaching them that this asshole is... this guy who's not supposed to be good is using this bad word, and we'll get maybe repercussions, or maybe we won't. Yeah, that was surprising. As far as the process, though, of creation, like, I think maybe I was surprised by how much freedom I felt all of a sudden, where I was like, oh, it doesn't matter what actually happened. Like, it doesn't matter if there's supposed to be a tree there. There's a tree there now, and there, it's like, it's very powerful. It's very godlike to suddenly be able to do whatever the hell you want with the. God, I gotta stop swearing, with your universe. And I also, one thing in the beginning when I was first writing out the script, I noticed that I was very. I got really attached to the characters, and when I had to, like, hurt them, I felt bad. I still did it. But yeah, they don't actually exist, so, except one of them. Who, I have to have an epilogue, this woman who I did not speak to for 20 years, I just spoke to her for the first time, and it went really well, and so I'm happy, so I have closure now. But I won't go on about that. Krista. I didn't have much say over the cover. I'm not really good at making cover or graphic design type stuff. So they had ideas. I drew everything. Like, this is my own art, but I just and they asked for a bunch of concepts, and it's very democratic with these people, and this. So I think that the cover designer, her name's Lindsay, is all, like, this is all her work, even though I drew it. I mean, I had like my say in it, but yeah, again, I'm not good at it. Oh, thanks. Thank you. Yeah, they pretty much reject all my cover ideas, as they should. I'm good at other things. Cool. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, you talk so much about how you differentiated the character's point of view and really, like, drew their universe.
Mm-hmm.
This may be a spoiler, but are you going to draw any of the aliens later? And if so, are they different to the different characters?
Well, there may or may not be aliens, but there are, and yes, you will. In book 2, okay, this is a spoiler, but you will see from one of the characters' point of view, who may not be entirely human. You'll see her perspective in its full color, and everyone is kind of how they are, and so, which I'm really excited about. A year from now when you get to see it.
Awesome, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Speaking of other books, did you know?
I knew from the get-go, like, what the story would be in general. Yeah, I knew that this. I feel like this is a pretty good book in itself. Like, if you just read this, I don't think you'll be. Well, I don't know. What do you, people people who've read the book, like, what do you think? Do you
You need more.
yeah, you need more. Okay, yeah. I did have I might not have cemented exactly what was happening, but I kind of knew intuitively what was happening. That was another thing about the editing process, because, like, everything needs to be explained, and I'm very, very, like, as you see, especially with the fonts, I'm super deliberate with everything, so I feel lucky about that. But my editor was like, okay, well, why did you use the grid here, and why did you have this color here? And luckily I had all the answers. I just had to somehow figure out how to say them in words, because it was just kind of floating around, like, my intuition. Did I answer your question? Cool. Thanks. Well, anyone else have any?
Tell me what you learned about cursive.
What did I learn about cursive? Oh, that kids can't read it. Yeah, if this, I think if this gets to a second printing, I'm going to have to change the cursive to italics, because there are kids who are like, I can't read this. I'm like, so, but the other subsequent books, I've taken the cursive out. So angry. I love cursive. Anyway, so I guess I'll be sending some books here. Please take some loquats. Don't make me eat them all. Bad things happen when I eat too many loquats. Yeah, thank you for coming.
Yeah, so she's right. We're going to set up a signing table right.
You've been listening to the Skylight Books author reading series. Don't forget, you can listen to this and all of our other great podcasts at skylightbooks.com. Thanks again for stopping by, and we hope to see you soon.